Here is something that I find very interesting when it comes to Hedera. And what is that? Not too long ago, Hedera posted on X and they showcased how the COO of Mingo Apps was sharing how their Hedera-powered platform uses NFTs and real token utility to unlock Web3's potential for ticketing and events. Now, why do I find this interesting? It's because that market right there, even though it's not really talked about in the grand scheme of things, I do like it because, for instance, according to Grandview Research, the online event ticketing market was worth around $54.5 billion back in 2022. However, it's actually projected to reach around $89.5 billion by 2030. So I think that right there is pretty interesting. And also another aspect I want to talk about when it comes to this post is the NFT part. Because again, like I mentioned before, I'm just going to repeat it real quick. Like the CEO of Mingo Apps shares how their Hedera-powered platform uses NFTs and real token utility to unlock Web3's potential for ticketing and events. Again, why do I think the NFT part is also interesting beyond kind of like the ticketing side of things, right? It's because the NFT market, yet again, according to Grandview Research, is predicted to reach over $200 billion by 2030. So yes, I get it, the hype when it comes to NFTs hasn't really been doing the best, but I just find it pretty interesting nonetheless that Hedera, it's beginning to kind of be considered as, maybe making a big impact in those market sectors, hypothetically maybe, as opposed to these other competitors out there that are using traditional blockchain technology, whereas again, Hedera Hashgraph uses a directed acyclic graph. Because for instance, we have to take a look at the hypothetical advantages that a directed acyclic graph may have over some of its competitors that do use traditional blockchain technology, like for instance, amazing scalability, improved data storage, also reduced energy consumption, allegedly. And some people out there, they seem to think that if Hedera is so good, why isn't adoption the best? Well, I think it's because many people out there are still kind of fixated towards traditional blockchain technology, which I don't think is going to be bad or anything because, of course, it's working and I still think it's going to have adoption moving forward. But if I was a developer and I was actually looking for a place to have, maybe better advantages, why wouldn't I consider something like Hedera? This is just my perspective. When the markets hypothetically do start waking up, people usually care about something different. They want something unique. They want something interesting. And could Hedera be something like that? Who knows? But at least the way I take a look at it is that HBAR historically has somewhat proven that when there was some attention when it comes to altcoins, this kind of did go along with the ride. I get the pullback, and I get how Bitcoin is doing very good as of right now, and altcoins, generally speaking, aren't doing the best. But again, I'm still staying patient because hypothetically, I don't see why we might not see a fully fledged type of altcoin season, because if, let's say, I'm just taking a look at in history, right? Because I cannot look into the future. Let's say I'm just taking a look at the past. Historically speaking, altcoins, as a worst case scenario, peak around 18 months after a Bitcoin halving event. We're actually not 18 months removed from the last Bitcoin halving event. Because if we did do that, right, let's say the last Bitcoin halving event, which happened back in April of last year, we had 18 months on top of that. That's around October this year. So if let's say, like, the market conditions were pretty decent anyways, would this be like a moment in time when altcoins, historically speaking, are supposed to peak as a worst case scenario? Based on the example that I used, maybe not, right? So then why would I be worried in that sense? This is just my point of view. However, I get it, sometimes waiting and just staying patient, I get the feeling because it's like, oh man, when is this gonna go up or whatnot? But in my opinion, instead of me worrying about things that are beyond my control, I'd rather be in the projects that I do believe in an event where maybe it does decide to wake up. I'm a little bit prepared, like in a sense where when I was believing in HBAR in the beginning, it wasn't doing the best. The price wasn't doing good. And then suddenly it had a pretty good run. Now, of course, there's a pullback, but I was not able to know that exact moment in time in which HBAR did have that run. So what was I able to do instead? Just accumulating holding, and then suddenly it went up, right? That was not within my control. That was beyond my control. So if, let's say, HBAR maybe decides to wake up again, how can I maybe be prepared for that? That's just by holding and just waiting. I think that's literally it for me. I am not speaking on anyone's behalf, but that's just what I'm doing. But even besides all that, let's say HBAR were to go to the price of $3, considering current circulating supply, market cap at that point's around $127 billion, around an 18x from here. I get it, sometimes people like to say, oh, it's a very high market cap and all this. Well, BNB reached over $100 billion in terms of market cap back in 2021, and that was years ago, Right now, we have over 600 million crypto owners, according to Crypto.com research. Back then, during the peak of that bull run, 2021, around 300 million. So it really is just, for me, a waiting game, because I feel like when we have that many crypto owners, when there is so many, I would say, interest when it comes to some other projects out there beyond Hedera. Like, for instance, we see many, enterprises really paying attention to this space, more so kind of concentrated towards like Bitcoin and Ethereum, but still, I think some of that kind of attention could trickle down to some other projects. Who knows, especially if more ETFs for other projects do get approved. So I'm still very enthusiastic for this cycle, and if, let's say, we do see a fully fledged type of hypothetical altcoin season, wouldn't surprise me whatsoever, but I'm still believing in Hedera because I don't want to give up on it. If I believed in it before when it was doing way worse than right now, despite the pullback, it would make no sense for me to just give up right now when HBAR is actually doing better than when I first started talking about it. So I'm still going to stay patient. Despite the pullback, I'm just going to be waiting. That's it. And feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I would greatly appreciate it. It's been Lee the Captain, and I'll catch you all in the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.